Ma, and you girls. I would never get here if I ran away from everything in the wood that scared me. So at last I looked around and I got a big club, a solid heavy branch that had been broken from a tree by the weight of snow in the winter. I lifted it up in my hands and I ran straight at the bear. I swung my club as hard as I could and brought it down, bang, on his head. And there he still stood, for he was nothing but a big, black, burned stump. I had passed it on my way to town that morning. It wasn't a bear at all. I only thought it was a bear because I had been thinking all the time about bears and being afraid I'd meet one. This is what he thought was a bear.
Well, that's true.
It kind of does.
Because it's in the dark and he couldn't really see, so he just saw something from far away and he just assumed that it's going to be a bear, right? It really wasn't a bear at all, Mary asked. No, Mary, it wasn't a bear at all. There I had been yelling and dancing and waving my arms all by myself in the big woods, trying to scare a stump. Laura said, ours was really a bear, but we were not scared because we thought it was Suki. Pa didn't say anything, but he hugged her tighter. Ooh, that bear might have eaten Ma and me all up, Laura said, snuggling closer to Daddy. But Ma walked right up to him and slapped him, and he didn't do anything at all. Why didn't he do anything? I guess he was too surprised to do anything, Laura, Pa said. I guess he was afraid. When the lantern shone in his eyes, and when Ma walked up to him and slapped him, he knew she wasn't afraid. Well, you were brave too, Laura said. Even if it was only a stump. You thought it was a bear. You'd have hit him on the head with a club if he had been a bear, wouldn't you, Pa? Yes, said Pa, I would. You see, I had to. Then Ma said it was bedtime. She helped Laura and Mary undress and button up their red flannel nightgowns. They knelt down by the trundle bed and said their prayers. Ma kissed them both and tucked the covers in around them. They lay there a while looking at Ma's smooth, parted hair and her hands busy with sewing in the lamplight. Her needle made little clicking sound against her thimble, and then she thread went softly, swish, through the pretty calico that Pa had braided furs for. Laura looked at Pa, who was greasing his boots. His mustaches and his hair and his long brown beard were silky in the lamplight, and the colors of his plaid jacket were gray. He whistled cheerfully while he worked and sang. It was a warm night. The fire had gone to coals under her, and Pa didn't build it up. All around the little house in the big woods, there were little sounds of falling snow, and from the eaves there was the drip, drip of the melting icicles. In just a little while, the trees would be putting out their baby leaves, all rosy and yellow and pale green, and there would be wildflowers and birds in the woods. Who can tell me what season they're talking about when they have all the flowers and...
Well, I'm guessing it's spring because, well, the trees getting leaves, wildflowers everywhere, and birds.
Exactly. Exactly.
Migrating.
Exactly. Then there would be no more stories by the fire at night, but all day long, Laura and Mary would run and play among the trees, for it would be spring. That was a funny story, wasn't it? Did you have a question?
I have a question.
Sure.
If it's winter, wouldn't the bears be hibernating?
Well, it was towards the end of the winter,
Oh.
when the snow was melting and it was getting warmer, and they were beginning to just wake up. Yes, so that's a good question, though. Yes, very, very end of winter time. Somebody else have a question? No. Yes.
I have a comment.
Okay.
It was silly when the dad said he hit the stump with the big stick.
Yes. Did you have a comment or question?
Comment. Well, what happened was that so he was like the dad was like and the bears, and if it was a bear and it wasn't a stump, it would just stay there like this.
Who can tell me how did Paul feel after he realized that it wasn't actually a bear and it was just
I bet he felt really embarrassed.
yes. He made all these noises for absolutely no reason, right?
I bet he felt like he had a sponge for brains.
Oh, he might have thought that, yes.
No, you're actually really smart.
But he was trying to be safe than sorry, right? So he tried to be overprotective. It's always better to be safe than sorry, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it was sunny, then he wouldn't have done that.
I'm going to read one more story, but since we were reading about bears, I figured I'll just bring you a little snack that's kind of bear related. It's not an actual bear.
Yay!
It's a bear cookie. We're gonna pass it.
I like the vanilla.
Oh, I love those.
I never tried
We're so good.
Sushi! I like this one.